I think that the Big 12 is the one conference in America where you really can't pin down the biggest games. So a couple games pop up every weekend, and at least it's my thought that, oh, could this be the biggest game in the Big 12, or could this determine, in late November what the championship race is going to look like? We saw Iowa State, Kansas State from week 0, even kind of start that trend, and we've seen Baylor and Arizona State just a week ago. A lot of people liked Baylor in the preseason, and obviously Arizona State's the defending champ, and they walked it off with a field goal. And now they run into another big game against TCU, and this time on a Friday. So what are your preliminary thoughts about this one?
ASU's in a little bit of a trouble from a personnel standpoint. Injury-wise, they got really lucky last year. And I'm going to go and say to win a championship, it just doesn't take being good. You have to be lucky. And ASU got very lucky last year in that they didn't have a lot of injuries, and they're really limping badly right now. They're missing Xavier Alford, one of the best players in their secondary. They're missing their nickel, Montana Warren. And in practice this week, today they lost their corner. And then 5 minutes after he went down, the guy that replaced him went down. I don't know if they're anything serious. I checked the injury report, and one of the players was not listed, and the other player was listed as probable. So maybe they're not too serious, but they're just kind of running on fumes in the secondary right now. And that doesn't bode well when you're playing a team like TCU and a quarterback like Josh Hoover that can throw the ball. So I'm a little bit concerned with that matchup. Now, when you look at what they did last week, where they really did kind of slow Sawyer Robertson down a little bit, maybe that's the formula in this one too, where you keep the ball on the ground and pound and 5-6 yards a clip, which ASU did that very, very well last week and kept the ball out of Baylor's hands. So maybe they have that strategy again. We'll see.
Yeah, so how is that, without looking at the box score, because I did not see the Baylor game, how is that running back distribution looking like?
Well, ASU had about 14 more minutes in time of possession, and that's pretty significant. And again, they just kind of kept the ball on the ground. Now, last week they only had 2 running backs. They had Raleek Brown and Kanye Udo. This week, they're going to have Kyson Brown back full strength. He was listed as available last week, but he only carried the ball a couple of times. He really wasn't full go. So Kyson Brown should be more of a full go this week, and that will help. So it wouldn't surprise me if they did that again and they kept the ball on the ground.
So obviously it begins on offense with Sam Levitt, one of the top players in the country at his position entering the season. I see 21 of 32 against Baylor and 221 yards, did not get picked off. Has he lived up to the expectations, considering that Arizona State's, I don't want to say one of the few teams in the country, but probably in the minority that they've already played 2 substantial opponents, unlike a lot of teams?
I don't think he's lived up to what he can do. Now, it's a little bit tricky because when you look at the Mississippi State game, that was just kind of just a strange game. And for some reason, that was his worst game last year, was Mississippi State last year. And I don't know. I think he's capable of doing more. I just think he's been a tad off, whether it's throws a little bit high or a little bit short or missing guys down the middle. I just think he's just not quite settled in yet. And maybe that's because our expectations of him are so high, given what he did last year, and you expected him to build on that. So the Mississippi State game, he wasn't good. I'd say last week he was decent, but I definitely think that he's better than what he's shown so far. And it's early.
And again, we're just looking at the stats from the Baylor game. And again, everyone, Arizona State walked off with a field goal in this one, 27-24. Jordan Tyson, obviously the star, who missed most of last season or down the stretch. last season, 7 catches, but only 43 yards. How are they approaching the receiving targets? Are they spreading things out, or
no,
is
they're not at all.
okay?
I mean, that's kind of been a big problem right now. They're still looking for a number 2 guy. Who is going to be the guy on the outside opposite of Jordan Tyson to keep teams from double teaming him and putting all the focus on him? And I actually added up the numbers today. Now I got to see if I can remember this off the top of my head. So there's out of 72 catches, I think Jordan Tyson's got like 32 of them. And then the running backs have, I think, 19 catches. And then the tight ends have 16 catches. So when you look at wide receivers not named Jordan Tyson, there are 2 receivers that have caught a total of 6 passes. So they really are looking for that number 2 guy. I thought it was going to be Jaron Hamilton, the transfer from Alabama, who can really, really fly. He just kind of hasn't found his niche yet. Malik McClain, I thought he had potential. He just seems to be caught up. He seems to get a holding penalty and an offsides every game. So, I mean, and then Jalen Moss, the transfer from Fresno State, he was a potential guy, but he's been sidelined now. This will be 3 weeks that he's been out with different ailments. So I think that kind of is one of the problems with the offense is they're still trying to find that other guy, if you want to call him the other guy.
So, Michelle, to flip back to the defense, because you led with the injury report and your concerns in the secondary, obviously the best way to protect a thin secondary is with a pass rush. So how has ASU been in that department this year?
Actually, much better than last year. That was a real big flaw last year. They've been much better in that regard this year. I believe they've got 11 sacks. 2 weeks ago, they had 5 sacks in a game, and that was the most they had a game in 2 years. So in that regard, I think they're doing much, much better. And they've got a lot of personnel. They're pretty deep on the defensive line. So I think they're very good in that regard. I think Clayton Smith is going to have a big year. He's had a pretty good first few games. And I think he's a draft guy. And he's just a freak athlete with his size and his reach. So I think Clayton Smith is the guy that's kind of leading the charge there. So I think that they're going to definitely do that. They're going to use that and try and, contain Hoover.
Okay, Michelle, my favorite question before we let you go is basically, especially in a situation like this where a lot of people that watch their team on Saturday don't see Arizona State play, but this being the best game on a Friday night opposite Florida State, Virginia, but a more important game, we would think. A lot of people are going to see ASU for the first time this year. Anybody that you've not mentioned that could pop off the screen, maybe a little under the radar, that are keys to this game?
Okay, the guy that I think doesn't get enough publicity is their cornerback, Keith Abney. And I think he's going to be a draft guy too. He's a junior. He was the starter there last year. I don't think he's given up a touchdown. I think I saw something today where he hasn't given up a touchdown in coverage. I believe he was the number 1 ranked Big 12 cornerback last week. And I think he was second in all of the FBS. So I like Keith Abney. And just the kind of the way this kid is, he had a PI that was called on him in the Baylor game, and it was a drive that Baylor eventually scored. And it was kind of one of those either way PIs where, some games it's called, some games it's not. And then 5 minutes later, Keith Abney picks off a ball thrown by Robertson. And so he's just kind of that dog mentality. And he doesn't get fazed when something, gets called against him. And so I think Keith Abney is one of these guys that's not getting enough love nationwide.
Michelle Gardner, Arizona Republic, previewing Arizona State taking on TCU. It's a big Friday night matchup in the Big 12. Check out Michelle's work there at Arizona Republic. You see her X/Twitter handle. Michelle, we always appreciate you stopping by, setting us straight on the Sun Devils.
Anytime.